Yeah, hello Simon. We are here at the EICMA, the Milano motorcycle exhibition, and at the Triumph stand I was impressed. I see a quite new Daytona. Yesterday I got the press information and I thought, oh, it's not so interesting because super sport segment at the moment isn't interesting for other manufacturers. Maybe it's just some small minor changes, but it's a new bike in fact, huh?
Yeah, it's an all-new bike. There are maybe a handful of components that are the same as the last year's bike. You know, the front mudguard, the indicators, the footrest, really nothing. So yeah, all new engine, new chassis.
Okay, let's go to the engine. It's a 675 CCM engine, but everything other of the main technical parts is new. Can you tell us something about it?
Okay, fundamentally we came to the conclusion that to increase the performance but maintain the torque and the character, we needed a new engine. We had to change the bore and stroke. We made some other improvements along the way, but fundamentally we needed a different construction on the engine. So our engines so far have always had separate cylinder liners. Yeah, so individual liners that drop in the engine. We had to move to a solid block to enable us to increase the bore, to increase the diameter of the piston and reduce the stroke. The solid block also is a bit stronger than the individual liners, so that allowed us to generate higher pressures inside the combustion chamber, which instantly gave us more torque and more power, not just at the top end but everywhere. So that's what we were looking for. Other improvements, we've got titanium valves in there now, because the stroke is shorter, we've been able to turn the engine faster. Yeah, another 500 RPM to the peak speed, 14,400. So we've had to put in titanium valves. We've also taken the opportunity to reshape the valves for better flow, so getting the gases into the engine better. We've got twin injectors on each cylinder, so that gives you the best chance to optimize the fueling. Again, not just at the top end, but down at the bottom end, the mid-range, so you get better torque and power everywhere. On the bottom end of the engine, we made a lot of changes to the clutch and gearbox. It's now a slipper clutch, which gives you better rear wheel control under aggressive braking into corners. We've made lots of changes to the gearbox itself and to the gear selection mechanism to make it lighter and more precise. So at the end of that, again, there are some parts that are the same. Basically, the clutch cover, so that looks the same. So a lot of people thought it was the same engine, when they saw the first spy shots in the press. So it's been nice for us to at least have one surprise to give people that it's a new engine as well.
Okay, and let's go to the things that are not so visible with the first touch. So what about electronic stuff on this bike? What do you have here?
Okay, there's a couple of areas where we brought in some more electronic control, rider aids. First of all is the ABS. Now, we've introduced ABS on the Daytona for the first time. For some guys who spend a lot of time on the track or riding really hard, they say, oh, we're not interested in ABS, just gets in the way. So we've developed a circuit calibration. The rider can select it through the instruments, and that circuit calibration basically means that the rider on a dry track can ride very aggressively, very hard, and will not notice the ABS. It will not intrude. If he's good enough, or she's good enough, they can even slide the back end into the corners. It allows much more slip on the back end. But then if the rider rides onto a wet track, for example, then the ABS will operate normally. Or if the rider goes off the circuit onto the grass, then all of a sudden you've got ABS to help you stay upright. So we see it as an ABS system that will not intrude in sports riding. So there's no reason for the sports rider not to want this ABS system. It's also much lighter than previous ABS systems. It only adds 1.5 kilos. Second area we've improved the electronic rider aids is on the quick shifter, which is standard on the R. It's an accessory on the standard bike. You just fit it and off it goes. It works straight away. The software have changed significantly. Now the quick shifter works by interrupting the ignition on the engine when you push on the lever. Yeah, it senses pressure and stops the engine very briefly so that you change gear. So it removes the load on the engine. So the system has now changed. Now it looks at the engine speed but also the throttle position and works out exactly how long to cut the ignition and fuel for. And it goes between about 40 milliseconds and about 120 milliseconds. So short length of time, but it changes depending on those conditions. Also, when the ignition reinstates, when it starts again after this 40 milliseconds, It doesn't go all 3 cylinders at once. It goes 1 cylinder, then the second, then the third. So it's a progressive reinstatement. And those 3 reinstatements come over maybe 10-15 milliseconds, a very short time. So you don't feel it coming in progressively. What you feel as a rider is that when you change gear with the quick shifter, it's very smooth and quick. You don't have to back off the throttle, and you can do that under high speed, high load conditions, like on a racetrack, or under low to moderate speed and load conditions, like in a town or relaxed riding. So you can use it not just as a performance aid, but as a general riding aid.
Okay, sounds great. You mentioned the quick shifter, and what are other differences between the standard model that looks quite interesting in red and the R model? What are other differences?
Okay, basically the suspension is different. On the standard it's by KYB, it's excellent suspension, fully adjustable, but on the R version you get this race-bred Öhlins suspension front and rear, and a good level as well. TTX 36 on the rear, NIX 30 on the front. And that just gives you more feel and control under hard riding conditions, such as you might get it on a race or on a track day. The brakes are different as well. Both the standard and the R have a Brembo rear caliper. At the front, the R has a Brembo monoblock caliper compared to the standard bike's Nissin monoblock caliper. The Nissin monoblock is very good indeed. There's not much difference between them, but the Brembo is just that little bit better. We've also got some very high quality carbon fibre bits. If you look at the bike behind us, on the hugger, cockpit infills and front mudguards, some really nice carbon fibre parts. And of course the quick shift we've mentioned, and that distinctive look, just the red detailing, just to make the bike stand out and look great as well.
Okay, sounds great. And we're looking forward to the first test. It's in 4 weeks, I think, at Cartagena.
Yes.
But for our readers, could you tell us some details maybe? How does it feel, the new bike?
Well, obviously I've ridden the new bike back to back with the old bike quite a lot during the development. The engine is better, it feels it's the same character. The sound is better, well, that's a subjective judgment. But perhaps the biggest difference you notice is the way the bike handles. Because of the new exhaust system, so it redistributes the weight, the whole bike's a bit lighter, we've changed the geometry. The end result of all that is the bike feels much more agile, so it goes into the corners more easily. And then once you're in the corner, really committing to riding fast around a corner, you feel much more secure and confident. The bike feels, what we say in English as planted on the road, really solid. So it's a combination of more agility and more stability.
Okay, sounds great. When will the dealers be equipped with the new bikes?
It should be in all dealers by the end of January. Some dealers in Europe will be early in January. So during January, everyone will have it.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to that.
My pleasure.